We're real excited about this week and the position we've put ourselves in. Just speaking to Saturday night, first thing, just want to thank our fans for the incredible environment. Fans, students were engaged. I think it made it hard on UC Davis. The 8:30 kick is a tall ask, but our fans showed up and really made a difference. It was great to honor the Native American Heritage Day with our helmet look, and I think it was a good thing that we had a chance to get over to American Indian Hall during the week. I know we spoke about it, but just I think our guys understood the impact that donning those helmets would make, and I appreciate the opportunity to do that and partner with the American Indian Council over there on campus. Speaking about the game, I think it was one of those contests that you have two good teams. There's going to be some back and forth. This team has continued to allow one unit to set up the other, and that was no different on Saturday night. I know, initially they scored first, obviously, and no one panicked. I think, offensively, we continued to find our way. Took the lead before half. Some special teams plays were critical in that that effort, and then second half we come back and get a field goal at the very least to start the second half off. Defense continued to do their thing, and then Caden's pick six. And not that it blew the game wide open by any means, but it was a huge play. You go up 17, all of a sudden they're knocking on the door. Certainly changed the complexion of that game. And then I thought we, from that point forward, defensively continued to do, for the most part, what we needed to do, and offensively to get a couple more scores and really be able to close it out. The game was sitting 31-17 in the fourth quarter, and you had some feelings of like last year when it was 30-15. And last year we didn't put the ball or the game away on offense, and this year we were able to do that with that drive and going up 38-17. So proud of the effort. Like any game, there's things to work on, and I think that the group was excited to come back to work today. And that's been this team. Regardless of how we felt like we played, we've been able to win now a bunch of games in a row. I think each one of those games there's things to recognize that, hey, we did this better. We continue to improve, but we can do this, and this better. And I think the resolve of this team continues to show up, and that hunger to keep chasing more. And that's put us in a position where this final regular season game means a whole lot. And not that it wouldn't anyways, but when you have all that's on the line that is, that's where we want to be positioned. And I think this group recognizes at the same time it's about winning a game. There's a lot at stake, but it's still, what do we need to do to prepare to win a football game, play as good as we can in a hostile environment, and it'll certainly be a challenge. Looking at the University of Montana, anytime you go through 11 games and you're undefeated, you continue to find ways to win, and credit goes to them. They're explosive on offense. They create real problems on defense. Speaking to that offense, I think Ayat's had a heck of a year so far, completing the ball at a high rate. He's almost to 3,000 yards at this point, and he looks a lot different than he did last year. I know last year he was sharing the opportunity, and that's challenging in its own right. He's certainly settled in and had a real good year, and he's elusive. He makes good decisions, and he can push the ball down the field. He's accurate, all those things. So, I think it does start with him, but then they have Gilman and Wortham that are two headlining playmakers in our league. Gilman's been doing it for quite a while in our league now, year 3, and he continues to be very productive. And then Wortham has been this new added dimension for them. I know just offensively, I think he's at 100 touches right now between receiving and rushing, and well over 1,000 yards. And the element that he certainly brings in the kick return game is there too. Their ability to line him up, at Wildcat and all the different things. He's certainly added a dimension to their offense. And like I said, defensively, they continue to pose challenges with their aggression, their alignments, their variability, all those things. And for us going into that environment, we're gonna have to do everything we can to play as clean a game as we possibly can, and certainly make it about what's going on between the white lines. And that in itself is challenging. So we'll work real hard to do that, and really looking forward to the opportunity on Saturday. Mhm. Well, I think that's what you use the word momentum. We have not been able to create momentum to any kind of volume or for anybody, kind of volume over there. They've been able to do that in both the games that I've been a part of with early offense, and then we haven't been able to. It's one thing to have someone create momentum, but then you got to be able to stop it, and we really haven't done that. The last time over there, we scored after the half, and maybe felt like it was leaning back our way a little bit, and then they get a kickoff return right after that. So I think momentum in these last 4 games has been heavy to the home team, and what happens after that momentum is created, that it creates a frenzy, certainly in either one of the stadiums that it does make it more challenging. So I think our ability to play within ourselves, deal with plays that aren't successful, I guess, as much as ones that could be successful. And I do think this team has done a good job of being pretty resilient. So how do you combat momentum? It's being resilient, and that's really what I think it comes down to now. How do you execute when the environment is different and challenging? I think playing in Autzen Stadium this year at the very least got us ready to. We spent some good time preparing for noise. I know we before we went down the Flagstaff, I think we anticipated a little bit more of a hostile environment down there. Now it really wasn't, but our preparation there. So it's not like we're just starting from scratch with some of that, just from an operation perspective. So it is a tall task, though, and it's proven to be the last 4 years. And I think in each one of these years, both teams have been good too. I mean, it's just, and that's, it's not a lopsided affair by any means going in, but the scores have maybe indicated that. So it's going to take a great effort. Well, I think we're in a state that is isolated from professional sports, and this is the primary focal point. And there's obviously a rich, long history, and there's been back and forth like recent years. There's been stretches of one-sidedness, I guess, and that feeds to the history and probably the feelings people have. And I know, thinking about it, just what it means to our players, we have 44 guys on our roster from Montana, and those guys, wherever they come from in the state of Montana, there's people on both sides. There's probably family on both sides. A lot of our guys have teammates, high school teammates over there, and this is a rivalry that is felt every day of the year as far as what side you're on or not. And being on the right side is what we're after. So, and I think these type of games, these same state, same conference, high stakes games just don't exist a whole lot. And we're very fortunate that it does for us. And it certainly drives us this week, but it drives us in a lot of ways each and every week of the year.
Is there anything else from 21-23 that you are taking to this one, especially from the prep side of it?
Well, I think we don't have a lot of guys that have played over there, and that's fine. I think this team is this team. I know, offensively, again, referencing the fact that we've had a couple weeks this year where we've had to prepare for noise. I think that's helpful. This isn't a standalone game. I suppose over the years we've learned how do we function best in a noise-filled environment, and that's not that we've been awesome, but I think we've taken some steps to do a better job to combat it. And I think more than anything, just continue to preach. How can you make it about the 22 guys on the field, and live in that world and be able to take the good and the bad and reset and play the next play. I think that's the biggest thing.
In 21, you also had won 9 in a row going in, but the offense was obviously struggling at the time. Does that kind of, I don't know, give you more confidence going to this one, knowing both sides are playing very well?
Yeah, I don't know. Like 21 is a long ass time ago. I mean, it is, and I think you look at how is this team. Why has this team gotten on a roll? What has our level of consistency been? How does this team, as far as the offense and the defense and the special teams, kind of all function together? I see that being quite a bit different than that team. To your point, I guess. And it has to be about our resiliency, and all these games do. And being able to look one another in the eye and continue to forge ahead is what we need to be about. So I just appreciate the fact that we are in year 5 here, and whether the game has been home or away, it's going to sit in that spot in the calendar, and it's certainly about in this case keeping that trophy here, but then it's been about the conference title and playoff seeding in all 5 years. So I think the guys that have played for us primarily played last year, and they have I guess dealt with those types of expectations. We have some guys that made the trip and played a little bit in 23, but I think this year's team is its own team, and you certainly try to learn from history though for sure, and going over there and what puts us in the best position to play well is what we're after.
Coach, for the guys that are playing in this rivalry for the first time, and you for the first time, what's the message to them leading into the game?
Well, I think it's got to be about the game, and you can't. There's a lot of emotion, and we want it. Our fans want it. They want it. Their fans want it. So whoever wants it more, that isn't going to guarantee you anything. So how do you handle the emotions and allow that to channel, the proper focus? And I certainly have a level of respect for the fact that they've figured out how to win 11 games this year. Okay, how do we, offense and defense, special teams, how do we go out there play after play and 11 guys do their job and win those matchups? You can't make all of a sudden this week this different week as far as preparation or how you view the opportunity, meaning you still got to go play a game. I do think there's no doubt this game means more in the grand scheme of things, the calendar year, all that stuff, but it does still count as one in the conference standings. And again, the fact that we have what we have on the line beyond the trophy and maintaining its presence here in Bozeman, we've positioned ourselves for that, but it's still going to count as one game, and we got to just go play as well as we can possibly play.
Coach, you mentioned it's about keeping the trophy here, obviously on the line, but when you walk past that first class trophy like downstairs, what do you think about it?
Well, I think you're happy it's here for the year it's been here, and I think it just is a constant reminder of the other team and the other university in this state that does push you to be your very best, day in, day out, week in, week out. I mean, how much, again, it means to those Montana guys that, within their hometown or their family or their amongst their high school buddies or whatever, they can have bragging rights. It's omnipresent in this building for good reason, and here's the week that we got a chance to defend it. Yeah, let's talk about Colby. I think real proud of his performance. You know, his ability to go out there and have as consistent of performance as possible on on that stage. I think shows what he can do. Having over a 50 yard average on the punt side of things, we haven't seen that, and he had some. He was not only punting with distance, but hang time and direction, and that was a big deal. And kickoff wise, he really made it challenging on them, and we were the one that they took out. We tackled that deep in their territory to start that second half. So, really really happy for him. Now it's backing that up, and then Caden to be in this position now 2 weeks in a row and make the plays that he's made again is a reflection of I think how he's played all year, but it's another opportunity where you have a chance, you're in that spot to make the play, and he does. And he was around the ball all night. Whether it was the 2 interceptions, and then I think dozen tackles or whatever he made. So yeah, it's hard to say how much he means to us, and I know we talked about it quite a bit on Saturday night, but that play in particular is one that will go down probably in history here as one of the better defensive plays. Yeah, I think we got out of that game. It was a physical game. The defense was on the field for a long time. I think we got out of that game pretty healthy. I know Paul went out but went back in. That was good to see. We played without Seth Johnson again, and I know we'll put him back on the depth chart. We'll hopefully get him back. And then on the flip side, offensively, we're in a pretty good spot. So I think Taki's continued to build up what his role can be. And sitting here game 12, I think we feel really pretty good about our health.
There's not a lot of guys that are hurt at all for you guys right now. How just grateful are you for the help that you've had throughout the season?
Yeah, I'd say it's rare, and you try to put your finger on okay, why? We are a younger team. There is youth that leads to health a little bit. I think sometimes you don't have the accumulation of years and years of playing this game. I think Coach Herron does a tremendous job of really, that balancing act of pushing them but keeping them strong, or while keeping them strong, but then just not overworking them. I think we do the same thing on the practice field. We have backed off the last 3-4 weeks, I suppose, as far as our reps go. And our coaches, it's up to them to really monitor, volume while still doing the necessary preparation, reps for preparation. So, yeah, I mean, I suppose it's a lot of things, and I think our training staff certainly deserves credit too for I mean, it's not that we're not dealing with bumps and bruises and soreness and all those things on a Sunday, but really having a plan to work through those over the course of each game week. So yeah, to be nearly full strength here at the last regular season game is a big deal.
Going up against 3-3-5, obviously a lot of success here, and not as much in Missoula. What can you maybe say is the biggest reason? How much noise is involved with that? Things like that.
Yeah, I think it's twofold. I think both times over there we've gotten off to just again slow starts as a team. So we've been kind of in that chasing points. Not having a little bit of just patience on offense. It can be that. I think I know last time over there they had a nose guard that was a problem. He was a problem for us that day, and that had nothing to do with noise. I mean, he was really disruptive that day. And it's not that they don't have good players now. They do, and I think allowing them to feed off the energy there is what we got to really combat. And the same thing, it's about execution on our side. So they do pose problems because they present a lot of different pre-snap pictures, and there's a lot of it's organized chaos. It's not chaos. It's organized. So our guys in particular up front, being on the same page consistently is important. So how we communicate that in that environment is is a big piece to it. And I know last time we weren't healthy at a running back from a running back perspective. Those guys got to be able to run hard and break tackles, and I think Justin's got to be, he's got to be able to play at a higher rate. Meaning he's just got to, take what they give us, and he's got to be able to communicate out there, and so yeah, it's the defense, it's the environment, it's who are we is the biggest thing though. We have to be the ones that go and execute, and we know those factors are going to be challenges, and okay, how do we combat that? Yeah, I think some of their additions. I know Wing has been a really good addition for them. I think both the taller at 58, 47, or I think those 58, 45. Both those guys bring length and athleticism. Yeah, I think in the secondary they do have some familiar faces, guys that have risen up through the depth chart for them. But it's there's not a lot of the same guys that were out there last year, so they've done a good job of filling all those spots, still playing the same type of way with aggression, and in a lot of ways it does look very similar. Yeah. I think last year you could look and say at times he looked really good, but living in that world where he was probably looking over his shoulder a lot, that is challenging. And my guess is he went into this season and knew he wouldn't be looking over his shoulder. So there's a sense of comfort. And he's a year older and stronger, more durable, all that kind of stuff. So he's just been really steady and again, making really good decisions, knowing when to go after the big play, distributing the ball all over the place. He looks like he's got a real plan, based on what he sees. And then his ability to extend plays, I think it's shown up before when he played, but it's, now he's the regular guy, is showing up a lot. And then, the unique different ways that they've been able to use Wortham has added a dimension. They, from a receiver perspective, he's doing similar things that other guys have done, but now you put him in Wildcat, even from a option perspective, power read game, those types of things. I mean, he's an exceptional athlete, and we saw that last year when he was at Eastern. He did some special things that day in a small sample size, so it's not surprising, but they've done a good job of utilizing him. Yeah, I think to have our two programs, in the same state with these two rabid, passionate fan bases, you can't take that for granted. The fact that we both fill our stadiums up regularly, and again, it doesn't matter like who we play. It doesn't matter who they play. It's a full stadium. I think that in itself is kind of lost in this day and age, for the most part. And again, the fact that we're both in the same league, in the same state, and have had a level of success that this game does live here at the end of the season. I think that even has changed a lot of different places where you don't have the luxury of saying, the conference is going to allow for these games to, this game to be played in the last regular season game. So I think there's internal forces, there's some outside forces that have probably even propped this game up even more, just over the last few years. But it again it means so much to so many, and that's really the driving force, and the fact that we both are having the success we are having. It exemplifies that.
Facing Davis now 2 years in a row, tough Davis beat going into the brawl. How much do you think that affects your team going into that game?
Well, I think for us, I think being challenged the other night, I think that's a good thing. we hadn't really played a 4-quarter game, at least to that degree, in a while. I think both sides of the ball having to respond to some adversity, hadn't maybe happened at the same time in a while. So no, I think it's a good thing, and to come out on the other side, with a 21-point win, and then also really good health. I think that's a good thing. Last year we got stuck in Sacramento after that game, and I don't know when we got back the next day. I mean, that itself was a challenge. So even though it was midnight when we kind of left the building, at least everybody got a chance to go home and go to bed compared to last year.
Coulter, you're up.
Yep. Yeah, you're right. It's a new look. And I really felt like their group of receivers the last couple of years was as good as there was anywhere too. So it just evolved. And I think for us, it's first defending the quarterback more than it is defending the receivers, and defending the quarterback meaning, how can we challenge him pre-snap, and then how can we put pressure on him. And then then from there goes, what the defensive backs have to do. And our guys have played, I think really disciplined for the most part all season, and allowed for the ball maybe to be completed in front of them when that's what the defense allows for. But I think more and more as the season's gone along, I think we've been able to challenge passing games at the same time with them. So we've seen some challenging passing games. We've given up some at times, but we've really done a good job of preventing the big play, and that's got to be the case again. So, and they're very capable of the big play, and their scheme gets guys open, and we got to be very disciplined. And that's probably the word I use more than anything. We have to be very disciplined. It's not about one guy being able to shut down one guy or anything like that. It's about 11 guys defending their passing game. Yeah, it is probably pretty rare, and I know the nature of our defensive line. Speaking to that, those guys that have kind of step by step, growing up in this program, that in itself is a rarity. I know, it is our catalyst on defense for sure, and being able to combat the run game, get after the passer is what that group has been about, and on the flip side, their guys being able to get the run game going and protect the passer is what they're certainly about. So, this is one of those games. I think whoever wins the line of scrimmage both ways is going to have an advantage. And I think you could maybe look back at the last 4 games and say that's been true. So, what do we need to do to have that advantage up front? And defensively speaking, make it as hard as we can on a real talented offense. Yeah, I think that was big. Going out there and again having that knowledge of what had happened last year. That game was 30-15 last year. We didn't put it away on offense. This year it's 31-17. Offensively being able to cap it off, and Justin having the 2 big runs that ultimately did that. I think he's a guy that plays with a lot of confidence. But I think each one of these moments where he works through some things, and ultimately, as a team we come out on top. I think that continues to build confidence. He hasn't played in this game. I know that he hasn't played over there, but he's been in some big time environments, and he's not going to shy away from anything. I think his comfort level and what we're doing with him, and his ability to execute, I think continues to come along, and we'll certainly need him to play well, but he doesn't need to do too much either on Saturday. So I think we're definitely in good hands, and um, I think that game the other night was another step in the right direction. Well, I think he was a force that season in particular, and they haven't had that. It doesn't take anything away from the guys. They rotate. They had a 99 last year. They got another 99 this year, so they had people in the same number. They're just not quite the same player, but it's still their scheme, their overall scheme of 11 players, I think, is still the challenge, and they've added some new faces, new names, each of these last couple years. They had some guys with some real length. I think that in itself creates challenges, like usual between the backers and the safeties. I mean, those guys play downhill and can really run and are fearless, all those things. So, yeah, it's new faces, new names. They maybe don't have that one, exceptional force on the interior, but it's still about their 11 guys like it has been all these years. Yeah, I imagine when they looked at their roster, this time last year, they knew that was going to have to be the way, and credit to them for being able to put all those pieces together, because it was high volume. I mean, that's not easy, and then beyond bringing guys in to bring them together and put them together and have them play together and achieve at the level they have, that is impressive. I know. It's a route we'd rather not go. It's a route they felt like they needed to go. So here we are. Yeah, for sure. And that small town guy, he might be one in 10, 20, 30 years that represented it. So that spans a long time, where the guys from the bigger city, they're just the next guy up that's playing in the rivalry. So yeah, I think the pride for a guy like Mason to represent Freud, Medicine Lake, and that region up that in the Northeast, it carries a lot of weight, and it I know that part of the state's the furthest away from where we're at, certainly where Missoula's at, but there's still there's angst up there, and then some, and for that's just a great example of, again, Mason's going to represent, and want to go back and have those bragging rights, and that could carry on for a long time. So yeah, I think it's not that it just matters in Bozeman and Missoula, or the big towns. It matters everywhere, and in every county and all that across the state. So it is a cool deal, and the fact that the stadium will be full is one thing, but the people watching on their TVs across the state is, that's if you're not at one of those state championship games that they happen to play at the same time on Saturday, you're probably watching if you're in Montana. Yeah, I think you could make it about they have the biggest enrollment, but it's enrollment doesn't dictate your ability to have success. It's about a youth program and then a middle school program that creates energy, that creates that group wanting to become Golden Bears, and then from my perspective, they're really well coached. They're developed. They had a really good track program and basketball program. I think that complements what they're doing on the football field. So you get competitive guys, you get multi-sport guys that then have the ability to develop. And we've had a good stretch of them right now, and we need that to continue. I know without that contingent of Golden Bears, I don't know where we'd be. I think I saw Paul's dad yesterday, and he said you can look out there sometimes, and there's 5 out there at a time. That's pretty special, and those guys really value being here, and we're thankful we have them.